All right, welcome back to another edition of Teed Up. Today we've got Libby Smith from Libby Smith Golf. We're so excited to have her on. Hey, Libby.
Hi, great to be with you all.
And I was just chatting with her before we started about that incredible backdrop she's got, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. But let's just jump right in talking about that wonderful backdrop. Are you at a course or a facility?
So I'm at a facility these days. I'm at a fitness facility called Arise Center for Athletic Development. I'm teaching out of an indoor simulator, a full swing simulator. Been at a club in the area for the last 15 years and just kind of went out on our own, and it's been awesome. So it's been super fun.
So you just made the switch.
Just made the switch last November. So it's fairly new, but been terrific.
Awesome. That's great. And then what age golfers are you primarily working with, or are you kind of all across the board?
So I'm literally all across the board. Teach everyone from 7 years old to 91,
wow.
which I love. I'm a big proponent. For me, I just love the game of golf. As you get to know me, I'm obsessed, like many of us.
Yeah.
But I love the challenge every day. From novice, beginner to experience. So it's everything from a +4 handicap to a 54 handicap, which I really enjoy.
Yeah, awesome. Great. Okay. And then what about V1? So I know you're fairly new to V1. What or how are we integrated into what you've got going on?
So I'm new in terms of on the pro mobile side of things. I've used V1 forever when I played, and then when I got into coaching. I utilize the pressure mat a lot, but every single day I'm utilizing V1 with my students in different areas. But it's been terrific in terms of being able to send them lesson feedback and let them be able to see themselves on video and different ways that we can help implement and help them improve.
That's awesome. Okay, so I played poorly, but I played college golf as well, and I used V1 too, all through my playing days. So that's really cool. Did you use it all the way back in the day?
So I did not use it back in the day, probably because
Okay.
I'm dating myself and we were new even to the internet then. But I really didn't utilize a whole lot of video. I think that as I was growing up, just simply because we didn't have access to it. Certainly didn't have mobile devices in my back pocket or access to that on the range every day. But as soon as I kind of transitioned out of the professional ranks and got into coaching on a day-to-day basis, I utilized V1, even if it was just on my cell phone, now with my iPad and my laptop and my desktop and everything. And it's just such a useful tool. It's so simple to use and easy to access, and wonderful for students of all levels and golfers of all levels to get a lot out of. So I have seen a tremendous value in it just day to day. And it gets better and better as we go.
Yeah, awesome. We love to hear that. So let's roll it back a little bit to the beginning. When did you start playing golf, and then what has your golf career, playing career, looked like up to this point?
So I started playing when I was 7. My grandma, my mom's mom, got us into it, and she got us clubs. Actually, I was 7. My brother was 10. And growing up, we spent our summers. My parents had a lake house, and my dad is in construction, so he bartered. He actually built everything at the local club, maintenance barn, cart barn, you name it. And in return, bartered for membership. So my brother and I grew up playing with each other every day. No joke, 36 to 54 holes, and we just went around and around and around. And as I grew up, I was a big basketball player. Basketball was really kind of, I would say, my stress sport. So golf was always my outlet. So it was kind of my safe haven away from the external pressures of basketball. And my dream was always to play on the LPGA. I'm from Vermont, grew up kind of idolizing Patty Sheehan, who was in Vermont till she was about 10. She was a skier as well. Then she moved out to Reno, Nevada. Obviously, LPGA Hall of Famer, paved the way for a lot of us. And I kind of set my dreams big there. going into, I always wanted to kind of play college golf and play professionally. But my handicap was actually, I didn't realize, I always played from the back tees, but I didn't realize the whole rating system when I was a kid was different for women and men. And so my handicap was actually a 7 on paper, but when I got it fixed, it was really a 1. So I didn't have any golf scholarships coming out of high school. And I had a number of basketball scholarships. So
Wow.
made a deal with my parents that if I took one of the basketball scholarships, and the deal was once I got my degree, they would save, for 4 years and support me for 2 years to chase my kind of LPGA professional dreams coming out of college. So that's what I did. So I played women's basketball. I went on a women's basketball scholarship to the University of Vermont, and I also played on the men's golf team. So I was able to compete all 4 years, and I played with the guys all through college, which was tremendous and absolutely amazing. My teammates were terrific, and all the people that I played with and all the guys I competed against couldn't have been nicer. So it was a great way for me to stay competitive, still be able to play basketball in the sport that I grew up loving and enjoying. And when I got my degree, I actually got my degree in December of 2002. I moved to Florida in January of 2003 to start to play golf year round. And then I started playing professionally. So the plan was to play 2 years of amateur golf out of college. I was fortunate enough to land some sponsors early on and turned pro earlier than I thought I would. So I turned pro in 2004. And I played professionally for 10 years everywhere. I always say, anywhere they'd let me play, I played. I played 3 years on the LPGA and 2 years on the European Tour. I played 8 years on the Symetra Tour, and I played 8 winters on the Asian Tour. So
Wow.
I was constantly playing and competing, kind of trying to play catch up a little bit because I hadn't played as much necessarily or competed as much necessarily as some of the girls that I was playing against. But it was, if you told me to do it, if I'd do it all over again, I'd sign up in a heartbeat. So golf gave me a way to travel the world and meet a lot of people. I have friends all over the place, literally. And it was wonderful. And now transitioning into the kind of club professional side of things, teaching and coaching it was an easy transition for me simply because I love the game so much. And so to be able to share my love for the game every day and help people find joy in it and, simplify it best I can for them to have success on the golf course, that's really what kind of makes my day.
Yeah, that's incredible. So let's go back really quick, 2 questions. The men's golf team, was that because there wasn't a women's golf team, or how did that work out?
Yeah, there wasn't a women's team. So I had some scholarship offers. I don't know. I think every 17-year-old should have an agent when you start looking for where you're going to go to college. Because my mom's like, we need to narrow this down. I'm like, X out New York and Pennsylvania. They're out. And my mom's like, what? Like the whole state? I'm like, yeah, the whole state. So needless to say, I'm a homebody. I love my family. I'm actually a 7th generation Vermonter. So Vermont thick and thin. But I had narrowed it down to Hartford because I could play basketball and golf at Hartford, UNH, and University of New Hampshire and University of Vermont. And University of Hartford had a women's team who was actually very good. But what it came down, I was actually an engineering major in college, and it came down to 2 things. One, I couldn't go into the University of Vermont gym wearing anything across my chest other than Vermont. But really the engineering program at Vermont was one of the best. So I ended up staying at home and going to the University of Vermont, and played, was able to play on the men's golf team. We weren't a scholarship team. We actually were pretty good, but we had 2 hockey players, a couple skiers, myself was a basketball player. So a bunch of athletes, but it was really fun to Burlington Country Club we actually share land with Burlington Country Club on the campus of University of Vermont. So we got to play and practice at a fabulous golf course, and made it easy for me to to jump over and practice when I could. And I kind of worked out with the women's basketball team during the week, and I would travel with the men's golf team on the weekends. And
Wow.
it really was a collaborative effort between the athletic department and everybody on board to kind of make that happen. But it really gave me, I laugh because, you know, I played 68 to 7,200 yards in college, and
Yeah.
I had a lot of drivers off the deck, and my short game improved, and but I laughed because when I got on tour, I was like, 8-iron. I haven't hit an 8-iron in 4 years. So, but so it was really fun, and it was an easy transition, and the coach was a wonderful guy, and the athletic department, I couldn't have, you know, asked for a better athletic department and a good support team and an engineering department to help me get through school. And it really allowed me to chase my dreams. And, you know, I never really thought I didn't have a chance until I got out there and realized that I had slim chances. But coming from Vermont and, you know, playing 6 months a year, the balance of always having another sport and keeping me busy, and the mental toughness side of things, going through adversity in different athletics, really played a big part in why I was successful as a professional.
Yeah. What a unique experience. That's incredible. I think being on a golf team full of all other athletes is so interesting. I love that. But sort of a sidebar here, because you mentioned, you know, talking to 17-year-olds about an agent. What's one piece of advice that you would give a high school golfer that's really looking to play in college? Because you figured it out, and you had some twists and turns, but you figured it out.
So the biggest thing that I always try to stress to any golfer trying to continue to get to the next level is play, and play some more.
Yeah.
So many of us, especially these days, we can get caught up in the perfect golf swing. And the biggest key is continue to believe in your strengths, continue to play your game, but play. Make as many birdies as you can, figure out how to go low, get comfortable going low so that you can play confident, and free. And the more that we play, the more that we learn, where, you know, the different areas that we need to hone in on and narrow up. But the biggest thing is just play and compete as much as possible, have fun with the game, and remember why we do it, which is we do it because it's hard. We do it for the challenge. And the best thing we can do to compete or reach our full potential and compete the best at the highest level is to put ourselves in positions to continue to learn to score, whether we're under a tree or I hit it in a hazard or whatever we need to do to be able to score and play. These days, you know, there's such an advantage to the knowledge that's out there. Utilize, set up a good team, whether it's, you know, a mental coach or a sports psychologist, and learn that side of the game as early as possible and implement that into course management and playing to your strengths and believing in yourselves. And that's a piece of it that I think sometimes gets brought in later. And the earlier we can introduce that to a lot of people, whether it's fitness routines or getting everybody on the same page, whether when you're working with your teacher or your coach, and learning how to practice efficiently and effectively, utilize time management, and learn, you know, what an efficient practice looks like so that you can transfer that to the golf course. So the biggest thing that I always try to stress, with those athletes that are coming up and looking to continue to play golf at the next level is play. Do everything you can to get on the golf course as much as possible. Learn to score, learn to play within yourself, and truly learn to believe in yourself and trust the process.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I think too, with the Netflix documentary that's, you know, going around right now, Full Swing, and Wyndham Clark's story, you've really seen how the mental coaching side has transformed, you know, his game. But to your point, how early can you get can you get that locked in, and how much better would you be if you got that handled earlier, which is, yeah, great point.
Yeah, I mean, and we all learn it, and you know, I'm sure you went through it as well when you get to college golf. But as we get older, life's responsibilities get bigger. We don't have as much free time, and we've got, you know, more accountability and responsibility on our plate. And it's hard to find that time to kind of unplug and really hone in and focus on the areas of the golf game that we want to improve on. So the more that we can have those tools in our toolbox to, you know, to handle the stresses and handle the ups and downs, and make sure that I always like to say, good emotional state. A lot of people will stress the mental game, but I like to refer to it more as the emotional side of the game, so that we're confident and believe in ourselves and trust ourselves. And I think these days it's even harder because it's thrown at us all the time. In terms of what somebody's doing or somebody else is doing. And it's easy to get caught up in comparing ourselves to others. The one thing that makes golf unique is it's just you in the golf course, and how well can you play within yourself.
Yeah.
And on any given day, you can play better than anybody else. So it's starting to tap into those key areas that you can succeed in, that are going to be different from the person that's next to you. And be a sponge, learn from everybody. None of us know it all. It's a team game, which makes it fun as you go along. You know, where you have coaches and teammates and caddies, right? And learning how to be open, and how to learn when to listen and when to not. I always like to say blinders and earmuffs at times. So that you're hearing, you know, one voice or two voices, whether that's, you know, your mental coach and your swing coach or whatever it is, but learning to kind of tune out those other voices and retain what's important and let go of what's not. And in order to do that, the more that we can play, the more that we can understand what's transferring, what's not, what's working under pressure, you know, where are the areas that we can kind of continue to improve on and continue to learn.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So I know you mentioned not having, you know, like mobile devices when you were coming up and things like that, but did you use any sort of technology coming up even into your professional playing career?
So as I was in the professional ranks, I started to use V1 more because it was easy for me to communicate with my coach, who was back in Vermont. He knew my swing like the back of his hand, so most of the time I could just call him up, tell him what my misses were, and he could help me out. But I did utilize, you know, we would shoot video with one another, especially when I played on Symetra, which is now Epson. You know, it wasn't in the days where everyone had a mobile TrackMan and the ability to video themselves every second. But it became, you know, even though we were competing against each other, we were out there kind of as a family, and that's what's unique about any golf, whether you're playing high-level amateur golf or top-level professional golf. You end up traveling around with your best friends and competing against your best friends. Not that you don't want to beat them every day, but you're there to help each other figure it out, sort it out. And so that was a big piece of the learning process for me, especially, is traveling and being away from my coach for 2-3 months at a time. And I think that, you know, really played a big part in my simplification of the game and my ability to not, and I always like to say, not overcoach, not overteach, but try to help people understand what their ball is doing and why. Because that was a big piece of it when we go out on tour or we're traveling around the country and we're in California and our coach is in Vermont, you know, what's causing my duck hook or what's causing my high push cut, you know? So you start to be able to self-correct, and that's really when you're able to kind of make that next step, is you can, you know, self-correct, hold the hole or swing to swing or within the round, and not fix it after the round, but you can make those adjustments in round by understanding what your ball flight's telling you. And and I had a coach that, you know, that's how he taught me. So, you know, that has certainly carried over into my professional career now, in the standpoint of, let's problem solve and figure out where this miss is coming from and what's causing it, and how can I help you walk away with the tools to self-correct yourself when I'm not there.
Yeah. So when you were playing on tour and your coach back in Vermont, y'all were sending swings back and forth using V1. How often would you say that you were doing that? Were you only doing it when you were having an issue or were you doing it kind of constantly?
So it's funny because we talk about this a lot, where, many of us have the golf journal, and now it's notes in our phone
Yeah.
and swing videos, from when we're hitting it well.
Right.
And I think that's one point, and it's a great question because it's not stressed enough. It's like anything, right? Like, we only go to the counselor when we're struggling, when really we should be going to the counselor all the time.
Yep.
Because what's important is to figure out what are you doing when you're doing it well.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times a day I say that. It's not about what we did wrong, because that list, who knows, the scroll goes on forever. But it's, what do we do when we do it well? And it's, one of those three keys is not happening if we're mishitting things or if our swing is off. So having those videos of yourself when you're playing well, when you're hitting the ball great, is what you want to go back to and what you want to continue to look at. And whether those are, what are those keys, what are those thoughts, what are you thinking when you're in that mindset?
Yeah.
What are you doing when you play the best? And that's kind of what we would continue to stress on. So I would say one big thing, and I could have been a little bit different than a lot of people growing up in terms of who my coach was, but what he would stress is my ability to learn from my mishits.
Okay.
And so a lot of times he didn't want me to use him as a crutch, in the sense of, I'm not calling him, but every day, hey, go work it out, call me, let me know what you figured out, how it went, that sort of stuff. So it was a lot of self-learning, and which long term, being on the road and being able to correct, especially when you're in your fifth week in a row or whatever it is, you can tap into some of that knowledge that you've got in there, that you've learned, and be able to incorporate that.
Yeah, that's incredible. And it sounds like you've taken that, what you've learned while you were playing on tour, and is that how you operate with your students now?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, my goal as a coach is to help whoever's in front of me reach their full potential.
Yeah.
Within their own capabilities. So, I would say with my engineering background, you put a club in my hand and I understood how to use it. I don't know if that's because I'm an angles and numbers person or what it is. So for me, the breakdown of the golf swing is a math and physics problem. So I can see it well. I understand why the ball does what it does. And my goal is to use their language to help them understand it. And
Yeah.
my favorite thing that I hear in a lesson is, oh man, no one's ever said that before.
Yeah.
To me, that's a good thing, because I'm tapping into, it doesn't mean that no one's ever said it. Someone's probably said it, but 7 different ways.
Right.
But I'm starting to tap into whoever's in front of me and how they understand in words that make sense to them. And that's kind of what I had 2 great mentors at home that I grew up, I worked at a golf course since I was 12. I was picking balls, and so I could hit balls on the range, and worked every facet of, I had every job imaginable at a golf course so I could play and practice. But I had 2 guys at home that were big believers. They did it the right way. They gave back to the game. They just wanted to grow the game, and they had no ego. And I think that's a big piece of being a successful coach.
Yeah.
Is it's not about me, it's about whoever's in front of me and how can I help them achieve their goals within the game and have more fun playing it and feel good about themselves and see some good shots and have some fun and enjoy whoever they're out there playing with. So One thing that's unique about golf is anybody can play it, for forever and forever, for how long. And you can have somebody who shoots 130 play with somebody who shoots 75, and everybody can still have a good time. And
Yeah.
we can't always do that in every sport. So I think that's what kind of makes golf cool.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. So when you're working with students, or maybe when a new student is coming to you, what's an analysis line that is kind of your go-to, or maybe just a starting point, when you're looking at the swing and drawing a line? What's that first line?
So I'm a big lines and circle person.
Yeah.
Really stress simplicity. Obviously, it might depend on who's in front of me and what we're talking about, but a lot of it is, how can we stay centered, balanced rotationally, right? So helping them understand, I'll draw the center line a lot, circle around the head, line in front, something to show them what's the goal, how are we loading up behind the ball, how are we staying behind the ball. That center line and that circle line around the head, I use a ton. It helps people just start to understand the motion and the sequencing, and to help them be a little more efficient in their movements and create some consistency for them overall.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to break that down further, when you're saying center line and circle, are we talking face on?
Talking face on. Yep.
Yeah.
I do a lot of face on. I'll get into down the line. I'm a big believer that the arms are going to do what the body allows. So I don't talk a lot about arm swing unless we need to talk club face and wrists, and kind of that control of club face at impact. But a lot of times I really am a big believer in, if we get the footwork and the wrist work in the right way, the rest of it kind of happens and takes care of itself. So
Yeah.
I really try to emphasize helping the student understand how we can simplify the motion. And at the end of the day, we're the center of a circle, and that circle's moving around us. So I do a lot of face on work so that they, from a visual perspective, can understand where they're at. And then if we get into it, I'll compare that down the line. A lot of times down the line, I'll draw the line behind to show, early extension or staying in posture. And I like to draw the headline. I always say head against the wall. So just where we'll stress posture, I'll use those lines. And then if we've got a big issue kind of out to in or into out, the path issue, then I'll draw that. And I like to just use the one line up the shaft just to help them understand what that shaft plane looks like. And then, there are times when I call it the cone of success, but when we go up the shaft line and then from the ball through the shoulders and keeping that through that cone, I try to give them, it depends who we're there, who's in front of us.
Right.
But from a visual perspective, if they can walk around and start to understand, okay, I'm trying to stay behind this line or trying to keep my head in the circle, all of a sudden they walk away with a couple simple keys that help them get back to good ball contact. And so, but pretty much those face on lines are center line, head in the circle, and then down the line, I'll utilize those posture lines more so than anything.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. Okay. So last question for you, and it's a fun one. Who is either the coolest or most fun player you've ever played with, or just your most fun playing experience that you had?
So when I start naming them, I'm afraid to name them because there's so many. But really, honestly, I pinch myself every day when I look back. It seems like I lived a completely different life for, 10 to 15 years in terms of in the professional ranks, and who I got to kind of learn from and practice next to, and who paved the way for all of us, to have an arena to play in and compete in, and to see these girls come through the ranks now and how good they are. And, they get better and better and younger, and it's just impressive. Patty Sheehan, I played my first practice round with when I played on the LPGA. So that was pretty amazing. Christina Kim was my mentor. So she was my big sister.
Okay.
which is pretty epic, as you can imagine. But we had a blast. Laura Davies, I played with in Singapore. I'll never forget it. She's a hero of mine. I couldn't even like hold the club on the first tee. I was so nervous. I played with Gulbis twice, and there's no kinder, considerate person that I've ever played with. Learning how she interacts with the volunteers and the fans,
Yeah.
and what it takes to put a tournament on. And, Annika and Lorena and Yanni Singh and you name it, Pat Bradley and Betsy King and, Nancy Lopez. And so
Wow.
I am just a diehard athlete. Like my buddies laugh at me because you could have a Hollywood star or president of the United States walk by me and I probably wouldn't bat an eye. But if Shaquille O'Neal or Dale Earnhardt or Tiger Woods or, Patty Sheehan walk by, I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my God, because that's how I grew up. Sports were my outlet.
Yeah.
They still are. I'm thankful every day that they can be. But when I played on tour, I was so, and I always say we all are, we still are, but I was so new to the game and so naive to all of it and so raw that I just wanted to learn. My brother was my caddy. It was amazing. My rookie year on tour. And I literally would look at the range and I would go find whoever was the highest ranked player in the world and I would park it next to them and pretend to practice. But really I was just watching what they did and
Right.
listening to their interactions with their caddy and their coaches and, and like Corey Webb and Julie Inkster and Annika and you name it. I played practice rounds with Lorena. I would look for on the practice round tee sheet. I would look for whoever was the best player in the world, and I would sign up with them and
Right.
I would just watch and I would try to learn how they practiced and how they prepared. And then my brother and I would stay there for hours afterwards and do what they did. And like I can remember in Corning one year, I was in the bunker and, we were just watching Julie Inkster hit bunker shots. And then right before she was getting ready to pack up and I'm like, hey, Julie, if you have 5 minutes, can you show me how to hit, whatever bunker shot? And so then my brother and I would stay there for hours and practice that. And, same thing, Corey Webb it was a deep lie in the rough. I grew up playing a municipal golf course, public golf. And so I didn't know what tight lies and thick rough and, undulated green. We didn't have all that. So
Yeah.
when I got out on tour, I was like, oh my, what is it? I don't have this shot, right? So Corey was hitting deep shots out of the rough one day, and Zach and my brother and I would pretend to hit shots, but really we were just watching what she did. And then as she packs up, hey Corey, if you've got 5 minutes, can you just show me? And they were gracious enough to show me and help me and really help me develop and help me learn. And I played practice round with Pat Bradley and Patty Sheehan, and I just watched,
Yeah.
and soaked up everything I could. I was a sponge when I was out there, going to dinner, just listening to them, was amazing. And I'll forever remember, it's the same way now when I'm in the professional ranks. I always call it teachers teaching teachers, but I love it because the more that we can collaborate and soak up and teach each other and learn from each other, the better off everybody is. So, in terms of where I played, my first LPGA event, my second LPGA event, I was leading after 9 holes. I was 4 under, and I was like, holy crap. And then I made an 8. So I was even.
Oh.
So that didn't last very long, but we joke about stuff like that. I got to play a British Open at Royal Birkdale, which was amazing and fantastic. US Open, my favorite one was at Oakmont. That was my best finish. So I mean, the memories are endless. We still, the friendships and relationships that you build when you're out on the road, away from your family and away from your friends and away from your base, are really special. And it goes, beyond the players. It's the players and the caddies and the rules officials and the people in the tour vans. And those are friendships for life. And, they have your back as much as you have them. And it'll forever be special.
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. I can't thank you enough for sharing all that with us. Your story is awesome, and I just want to sit and listen to you talk forever and ever. But I do want to say that we are so thankful to have you on the team here at V1, just to have a coach that clearly cares so much about her athletes and the game of golf in general. That's an incredible coach to have on our team. So very thankful for that, and thankful for your time today.
Well, thank you, Haley. I appreciate it. It's been a blast being part of V1. Believe in what you guys are all doing and keep up the great work.